saw the last part of our exciting road trip in South Africa a while ago. And now we bring you a new adventure in a new car. This time around, Hormazd joined us for the journey. Cape Town to Port Elizabeth on Route 62 or the Garden Route. Cape Town gave us its traditional windy welcome and we drove around the city, exploring City Hall and Library with the tabletop mountain in the backdrop and its legendary tablecloth flowing over it at rapid speeds because of the wind. Seeing that, we were tempted to drive up despite the fact that the wind warnings were at extreme level. The drive was picturesque and it gave us a perfect view of Table Mountain and Signal Hill. But as we got halfway up and I got out of the car, I understood the depth of those wind warnings.
Well, it's a typical day in Cape Town. Terribly, terribly windy. As you can see, I'm literally fighting to stand in the same spot. Cable car obviously going up there is closed. But we still had to get up here to get these stunning views.
Even halfway up the hill, we could see Cape Town spread out like a carpet below and it looked fabulous. All the walking around and fighting the wind made us hungry and we headed off to the V&A waterfront for lunch. After a snappy meal at the Greek Fisherman, we walked around the lively waterfront area. There's a big indoor mall, but it's the smaller shops outside that are more interesting and the live performances happening all around that make it so fascinating. You can easily spend a whole afternoon here, but we had an appointment with Robben Island and so had to hop onto the extremely busy ferry. Robben Island was originally a part of the mainland where people lived, but now is quite different. So we're leaving Cape Town behind us and we're headed off now to Robben Island. Now this is a place that's been a prison ever since the Dutch settlement. It changed hands, went to the British as well, but it became famous because of it holding all the political prisoners during the anti-apartheid movement. Well, it should be an interesting place to visit, but more importantly, it's also famous for having a lot of seals around the island, so let's hope we see some. The boat ride is a 30-minute trip and the buses take you around the island showing you the places that the prisoners were kept and the quarries they worked in. Nelson Mandela also spent many years here and one particular cave in the limestone quarry was the place that the prisoners used to have lunch and is often called the First Parliament. The reason for this is that many of the freedom fighters would share their opinions here away from the prying eyes of the warden. We also visited the cell where Mr. Mandela was held captive and we were given a tour by an ex-convict. His stories of torture and solitary confinement were bone-chilling.
The environment is suffocating, it's repressing.
Though Robben Island is a far cry from our prisons, it still made me realize what freedom is worth. On our way back, the seals did come out to entertain us and we saw a couple of penguins too. The journey back with the setting sun provided a canvas of colors against the backdrop of Cape Town and the Table Mountain. Well, as you can see, it's another windy day in Cape Town, but it's not as bad as yesterday. So today we're getting the chance to go up into the helicopters, which were all not flying yesterday. Well, we saw Cape Town by road. Now we're taking the aerial route. The wind had died down by the time we alighted the copter and a bright sunny day unfolded. The aerial views of the city with the imposing Table Mountain and the gargantuan 12 Apostles at Camp Bay were just jaw-dropping. The Bell helicopter flown by NAC was holding steady for us to get some fabulous pictures. The 15 minutes in the copter flew by in a flash, but there was no time to feel despondent because as we got off one adventure, another one awaited when we landed. I was to change my mode of transport again till Chapmans Peak. You, me and a dog named Boo is what came to mind when I saw the bike with a sidecar and Brody the dog. How exciting this was! I hopped into the front seat of the sidecar with Brody sitting shotgun. While I was getting wind blown, Brody seemed to be lapping it up, but this was an entirely different experience. Having nothing around me to obstruct vision, I was being treated to a fabulous 360-degree view of the panorama. As we rode down to Camps Bay and then on to Hormazd Bay, all I could do was gasp at the spectacular scenery paving my way. Brody nestling up against me and resting his head on my shoulder was an added bonus. Tim, my rider, was running me through the route and the history of Cape Town, and it was definitely a unique way to make the journey. We stopped at Hormazd Bay to change modes of transport yet again, this time to a boat to head off to Seal Island. We got our first taste at the jetty itself with a few seals frolicking around and posing for us. The 15-minute boat ride takes you out to a set of rocks in the sea where the seals cover the surface. The boat docks alongside and it's a perfect opportunity to view these animals up close. While a few were sunbathing, the others were diving in and out of the water and swirling around, flapping their flippers, putting on a grand show. But their fishy odor was overpowering. Wildlife in South Africa is just so used to people viewing them, they're unabashed and really let you get close. Back from the boat, I hopped into the sidecar once again, and the rest of the ride to Chapmans Peak was just something that shouldn't be described in words. I'll let the visuals speak for themselves. Well, we're on our way driving from Cape Town to the Cape of Good Hope, and we've just crossed Hormazd Bay and Seal Island. But now we're at Chapmans Peak, and it's a must climb over here because the views from here are just spectacular. On one side you have Hormazd Bay, and behind me you can see all the way down to Noordhoek, which is where we're going to stop off for lunch. It was time to hop back into the GLC, and I was looking forward to driving that winding section of road that I had seen from the top. We were headed to Fishhoek for lunch.
So Renuka, how was the sidecar? It looked rather hairy, I would say windy.
It was a really lovely ride actually. It was windy early in the morning just before we got to Hormazd Bay, and it was quite odd because we had phases where it felt like someone had suddenly switched the AC on, you know, like God was playing with us, because the wind would suddenly drop temperature and get really, really cold, and then it would warm up again. And I believe it's the ocean currents that do that. That's what Tim was telling me as he was riding me along. The beauty of that ride, I think, was just being in that open sidecar where I was just getting this panoramic view of this stunning, stunning road.
Yeah, well, I have to say I was at a consistent 21 degrees, so I didn't really feel any change in temperature, but I must say it was just a fantastic drive. The views were just spectacular. And in this GLC, which is just perfect for just wafting along, it's a great cruiser. You know, it was just a really great relaxed drive. I just love the steering actually. I've always liked the GLC steering, really well weighted, feels very fluid, and around the corners it really felt good.
Fishhoek was a busy beach and we had lunch at a quaint little shack. The seafood platter was extremely large and generous, and a nap would have been in order after that kind of meal. But we still had miles to cover and we were headed off to the Cape of Good Hope. The drive to the Cape of Good Hope once again provides panoramic views of the ocean, and it had us stopping at every corner for pictures. We finally made it down to the Cape, but just before we hit it, we had our first wild ostrich sighting. We did the tourist thing, taking pictures at the signboard, and then once again drove back with the sky turning shades of gold and red alongside us. The day came to an end at another kind of gold. This was a traditional restaurant that was another matchless experience of the different flavors of South Africa. Well, as you can see today, it's Route 62 for us. This is a fabulous, spectacular, scenic route that meanders through hills, through vineyards, and takes us all the way to Oudtshoorn for the day. And of course, in Oudtshoorn, it's the ostriches we're headed for. Cape Town to Oudtshoorn is about a 450-kilometer drive, and the GLC settled into a comfortable cruise, doing 120 kilometers an hour sitting in 9th gear at around 1700 RPM as we headed out. After a while, the broad highway became 2-lane and then funneled down to a single lane, but the speed limit remained, allowing us to keep a good pace. Drivers in South Africa are very well mannered, and if they notice you driving up behind them, they will pull aside and let you pass. So very rarely were we ever held up by slow-moving traffic. The lush green countryside and the open plains wound into the hills as we crossed Huist River Pass. We took time off to film and shoot in the scenic area with its undulating roads and winding corners. As we cleared the mountain pass, we crossed over to the Karoo, as the South Africans call it, which means small desert. The countryside changed dramatically to flatter, vast open spaces. The trees gave way to shrubs, and then all of a sudden on Route 62, we saw a signboard in the middle of nowhere that had our curiosity piqued. We just had to pull over.
So here we are driving along Route 62 and suddenly we see this sign, Ronnie's Sex Shop, and everyone wants to turn in. Ronnie, what's the story? Is this just to get everyone to come here?
It actually started as a joke. I put Ronnie's shop on the wall of this building behind me in 1989. I wanted to open a farm store. In 1989, there was one car a day. That was my neighbor. So it never happened. 2 years later, I wake up in the morning and I have a sex shop. My friends have put the sex on.
So it was just a joke, is it?
It was just a joke. I was very cross. I left it, stood empty for years. People were stopping. We opened a bar for a joke and took off.
Well, that's a great way to pull people in here.
Sex
But sex sells and it's become quite iconic, isn't it?
It's very iconic. It's all over the world. It's great for me.
It's a bit colourful with all the lingerie hanging around, but it's a biker's favourite and a must-stop place along the route. Curiosity satisfied, we set off again towards Oudtshoorn. Oudtshoorn is one of the biggest ostrich farming places in the world. Isn't it great? The speed limits are absolutely fabulous. You never get bored.
Well, the speed limit is just 120, which is fine, but the thing is you can average over 100 because there's just no traffic. They're single lane roads, which is fine, but there's just no traffic at all, and I think that's really the beauty of driving in South Africa.
Yeah, and even on the winding sections, the speed limit remains 120.
Yeah, exactly. So, really, I don't know why I've not driven here so much before.
Now, Hormazd, you were sitting in comfort, I think, in 9th gear on the highway out this morning and cruising. But I switched it to Sport Plus because I wanted to make quick overtake maneuvers on these narrow highways for the slower moving cars, so I didn't have to use the paddles. But I think we're going to have to shift again because we've gotten down to, less than a quarter tank now. We'll just put it into eco and light foot it a bit because we don't know when the next pump is. We arrived in Oudtshoorn just in time to catch the tour and set off to see the curious lot of animals. Anything shiny attracts them, and the things that come out of their stomach are simply amazing. These animals can live up to 60 years and weigh up to 165 kilos. The guide warned us that an ostrich can kick pretty darn hard when they attack, and their nails can cut you 7 centimeters deep. But they can't kick in the ground, so the best defense is to lie down if you're being attacked. But that also comes with the caveat of being able to bear the 165 kilos on top of you, because if they can't kick you, they will sit on you.
But they're still going to punish you. The only punishment they've got for you is to sit on top of you.
Well, I was sure there were going to be no ostrich encounters for me. It's not worth getting one angry. So I carefully looked around while I was made to stand on an ostrich egg, lest I anger the mother. I couldn't believe that egg wouldn't crack, but it didn't. The shell is amazingly hard, and it must be crazy hard work for the baby to hatch itself out. As we left the ostrich safari and headed to our hotel, the skies put up a glorious show for us, throwing warm light onto our car and painting a canvas of colors once again in the sky. In the distance, the rumble of thunder warned us of rain, and the sky was now divided into ominous grey and glorious gold. Sure enough, the thunderstorm came right past us, putting up another light and sound show. Our night halt, the Meerkats Hotel at Oudtshoorn, is a quaint place with a lovely setting and large rooms. The views are gorgeous and the dinner was marvellous too, with some ostrich meat for the meal and farm-fresh vegetables. It was another gorgeous day in Paradise Land, but we slept early with another exciting adventure in store the next morning.
Well, seeing wildlife is not easy. It looks wonderful, but it's a 4:30 a.m. call today. We're off to see the Meerkats, but then even at 4:30 in the morning, superlatives just flow in this country because everything is just fabulous, and I'm sure it's going to be another stunning day.
The crack of dawn start had us drive out to a designated spot on the road and meet up with another bunch of people, all in the hope of catching the sighting of the elusive meerkats. Meerkats are small animals from the mongoose family and live in groups called mobs or gangs. It was a long wait camping out in the open, and they took longer than normal to be seen. But that was because we were sitting on top of their burrows, and as soon as we moved, they emerged. These tiny little animals live underground and surface to catch the early morning sun and warm up before they set off foraging for food. As the first one popped his head out to check the surroundings, the other heads started popping out everywhere. They came out and examined us. Strange creatures gathered to view them for a few seconds before running off into the bush. The window to see them is so small it felt like a darshan at Tirupati temple. A long wait and then it's all over in a flash. Still, it was exhilarating to know we had spotted one of the most elusive animals to see. Meerkats ticked off our bucket list. We left the bush, trundling down a section of off-road before hitting the highway again.
Before we headed towards Naisna, we visited the Cango caves, a 4-kilometer system of dripstone tunnels and caves discovered in 1780 by a local farmer. It's a fascinating collection of limestone formations and should definitely be on the list of places to visit when in Oudtshoorn.
The dirt had got the car a bit muddy, so we decided to clean up the GLC while having lunch before we set off for Naisna.
I think what a lovely start to the day with, those meerkats. It's quite something amazing to see.
Yeah, it was, and a little bit of off-road driving also in that wet mud with the GLC. I think the only real off-road we've done. And I think the car needed a good wash after that, which was good after nearly a couple of days of driving over. What have we done? Close to 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, pretty amazing. What I've loved about the drive today is the changing countryside. First we had that bush, the Karoo. We went through some absolute desert-looking regions. Then we had those twisty, windy roads. And now, we've come to beachside and lakeside. So there's just been something new to see consistently on this drive from Oudtshoorn to Naisna.
And I'll tell you, I think South Africa is one of the nicest countries to drive in for several reasons. One, the roads are absolutely brilliant. Secondly, it's not like in Europe where everything's boxed and you've got guardrails. You can just pull off onto the side of the road if you see something good, just like in India, stop, take some pictures and carry on. So that's also fantastic. And above all, I think just there's so little traffic. That's what is just absolutely superb about it.
The route took us through the bushland, the Karoo, and then finally to fir pine trees ending up at Lake Naisna. We had an appointment at the bustling marina for what we thought was going to be a lake tour. Little did we know that 600 horsepower was going to blast us through the ocean. We saw the coastline, caves, blowholes, and a beautiful sunset, but it was the ride that was really the thrill. The rib adventure is fantastic for any thrill seeker. And as the skipper puts down the throttle, the 600 horsepower engine ensures that you're hanging onto the seat bar for life while the wind plasters your hair back and pins you to your seat. 89 kilometers per hour out at the sea feels like much, much more. And it actually made me realize just how well the GLC had been masking our speed out on the road, keeping us cushy, comfy and calm on the inside.
A little wind blown and worse for wear, but this adventure boat ride has been absolutely fabulous. We went up to about 89 kilometers an hour, and on the water that feels really, really quick, especially when you're getting tossed around by the waves. And what fabulous views we had and the great sunset. What a ride.
thrill part of the day over, we freshened up and headed to an early dinner at the vibrant marina, lined with interesting shops, and our scrumptious dinner was just another perfect end to another perfect day. We woke up to what was going to be our last day of driving in South Africa, feeling a little despondent. This had been such an amazing experience, and even after so many days on the road, I wasn't tired. I was just yearning for more. There's just so much to pack in this country. How quickly 12 days had flown by. And still, we had one more adventure at the Tsitsikamma forest on our agenda to look forward to. Knysna to Tsitsikamma is a short trot, and the GLC cruised there at a steady 120 km an hour to get us there on time. We decided to head off trail a bit and experience another aspect of South Africa.
We've seen so much in this country, and today it's something different yet again. Today I'm deep in the jungle of Africa, in the middle of Tsitsikamma forest, just blending in, feeling one with nature.
Sitting in the open, having a little picnic lunch with the peace of the surroundings enveloping us, we reminisced over our last few days and what a wonderful experience this entire journey had been. As we drove to Port Elizabeth, the sun had set on our journey, and the last meal of snails and pasta ended our culinary delights too. What a wonderful experience South Africa had been for each one of us, and we all took special memories home.
Well, what an absolutely spectacular drive this has been. I've run out of superlatives trying to describe each day. What a wonderful beginning in Cape Town. Let's take a look back at the journey. Whether you're an adventure junkie, whether you're a wildlife fanatic, whether you're a nature lover, whether you're a driving enthusiast or just a foodie, this country holds something for everyone, and every single day holds a new surprise around each corner.
Well, this week for me in South Africa was all about the driving. Now, I know this country is all about the wildlife, the adventure, the bungee jumping, that sort of thing, but I enjoyed it from behind the wheel. And from behind the wheel of a really nice car, the Mercedes GLC was the perfect companion because it's a great cruiser, and on these roads, that's what you want to do, just cruise. The highways are brilliant, there's no traffic, well surfaced. They even are a bit entertaining. They meander through different terrain, and that's really what I loved about driving in South Africa. So this is a country I'm definitely going to come back to for the driving.